Well, good evening, everyone, and we are reconvening our regular Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, July 13th. For those of you that are just joining us, Council did meet in an in-camera session where we were meeting in camera to discuss a property matter, and Council gave direction to staff on how to move forward on that. We did ask at the beginning of that meeting for a disclosure of pecuniary interest, and there were none declared. So imagine that you were all like me and were quite excited when word came down last week that we would be moving into stage 3 on Friday. This move has been awaited by so many, and not the least being restaurants, gym owners, and personal care operators. So I encourage you, as always, as things become even less restrictive, when it's an option, support local. And if you can choose a local dining option when you are going out to eat, please do so. Consider buying a loved one a gift certificate from one of our local estheticians. And maybe now's the time to get a gym membership. But there's always ways that we can support local, and I ask you to continue to do that. I had a great weekend. I was able to host a very small family reunion. It has been a year since I saw my sister last. And when I did see her last year, we respected protocols and wore masks and kept our distance. You see, our family, and when I talk about our family, I talk about my extended family. We have a family member who has a number of serious health concerns. And because of this, even when things were not as restrictive as they have been, getting together with my sister was not an option. I talked to her every day, so I was not expecting our reunion to be as emotional as it was. And I will share with you that when she and her husband and their grandson drove up the driveway, I couldn't run to the car fast enough to give her a long overdue hug. It was very overwhelming. As I watched my family entertain their young cousin, and as I watched some family members chip and putt on our little course, and as I sat on the deck holding my sister's hand, it really felt like a huge weight had been lifted off of us. And why was that? Because things were the way they should be. We were able to do this because we got vaccinated. We felt safe and secure in getting together on Saturday as we did. So if you want to return to normal, if you want to travel, if you want things to keep moving forward, and if you've been resistant to getting the vaccine, and that's okay, I do understand why there's hesitancy out there. Please reconsider though. If you've had your first dose, but not yet scheduled your second dose, please do so. It can't be any easier for you to get a vaccine. There are many options available to you. Make an appointment at one of the mass clinics or at a pharmacy. And actually today, the health unit just announced if it's your first dose, you do not even need an appointment for that. The health unit and the Middlesex London Paramedic Services are both hosting pop-up clinics throughout Middlesex London. And these clinics do not require an appointment. Paramedics will be in Granton on July 22nd, and they'll be in Lucan at the beginning of August. I know that we could have a great discussion on how the pandemic has been managed, what has been done right, and what hasn't worked. What we could have learned, what we've been learning as we've gone through the last 16 months. And so that we can take those lessons that we've been learning and we can be better prepared for a future crisis that could potentially cripple us again. And I look forward to that discussion. And I can promise you, I will be part of that discussion, and it will happen in time. But right now, the vaccine is the best tool in our toolbox. So please use it. Get your two doses. Really consider it your civic duty. So we have to move into a public meeting for planning, and we've got Dan Fitzgerald with us tonight. So that means we've got a number of applications in front of us. So I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn our regular meeting and sit as the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed, and that's carried. All right, we have one application. The first application in front of us is a application from Westdale Development Corporation. So Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you walk us through it.
Through the mayor, thanks, and hello to all the members of the committee. So the purpose of this application before the committee tonight is to provide a recommendation for a proposed amendment to a condition of consent, as well as to establish a shared access easement, which is required as per the Ministry of Transportation as a condition of consent. So as committee may recall in this instance, planning did bring forward a application for consent, as well as a zoning bylaw amendment on December 1st, 2020. Both applications were approved by committee and council. So upon clearance of the conditions of consent, the Ministry of Transportation has requested an amendment to the conditions list, that being included as condition number 10 as well as 11, as identified in the planning report. Essentially, the ministry has requested a condition to be added to require the owner to apply for and receive approval for an entrance permit to the remnant lands, those being the agricultural parcel, as well as to establish a shared access easement in favor of the remnant agricultural parcel, which is to extend through the severed lands. So the purpose for doing so is to accommodate a 20-meter wide access easement that would provide access to the remnant lands should these lands be permitted to develop into the future. So again, as a recap, the subject property is a 21.83 hectare parcel, and it is situated on the south side of Main Street or Richmond, on the northwesternmost edge of Lucan. The lands are also north of the Lucan Community Center and municipally known as 315 Main Street, and as shown on the location map attached to the planner's report. The land is currently surrounded by agricultural lands and is currently vacant and used for agricultural production. The northwest portion of the existing lot is within the urban settlement area of Lucan. This area of land is designated highway commercial in the Lucan Biddulph official plan. The remainder of lands is outside of the urban settlement boundary of Lucan and is designated agricultural in the township official plan. The property is currently zoned general agricultural A1. Oh, sorry, actually it was rezoned to a split zoning. So there's a site-specific C2-11 commercial highway commercial zone on a portion of the severed lands, with the remnant portion being zoned a site-specific general agricultural A1 dash, I think it's 13 zone to recognize the undersized nature of the parcel. Municipal services currently do not exist at the property, and access is maintained through Main Street. The dimension of the lot has not changed based on the original approval. Rather, they are only requesting the addition of a 20-meter access easement, shown as part 2 on the attached reference plan to the planner's report. As well, they are proposing the required amendments to the conditions as requested by the Ministry of Transportation. The planning staff have reviewed the proposal against the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, as well as the township official plan. I am of the opinion that the proposed amendment to the conditions of consent, as well as the requested shared access easement, meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and local official plan, while also representing appropriate land use planning. So given the above, staff are recommending that committee approve the consent applications B4-2020 and B5-2020, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Dan, any questions from the committee? We do have the planner and the representation from the applicant with us. So if there's any questions from the committee, and then I'll open it up to them. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have one question about the agency comments, and I think it's for Jeff, if I may. Just talking about the further commercial development in the area would put pressure on municipality to extend urban services to this property. sidewalks, street lighting, and road drainage. My question or concern would be about costs to the municipality.
Jeff, did you want to take that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely something through the mayor. There is something to be said about that. We are working with that, and we're working to look at what options are available, what services and what urbanization can be done, and what recommendations we can bring through to look at this. If there was to be further development on the severance of this property, so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Manders.
This is for Laverne there. I wonder if you can just assist me in this does not in the how to answer rumors within the community. As deputy mayor, I get asked a lot about your property, and this is the largest commercial development proposal that I've ever been involved with. And when legally, at what stage do you announce the tenants when they are legally signed? Like, at what stage do you, and how do I answer? I just wondered if you could assist me in answering those questions of the community.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're being asked a lot of those questions. I just think that probably that's the business of the client and the owner. And David Trayer is here, and David, I wonder, I'm not sure when you can announce your tenants, but I know you have to close on the property. The closure is dependent upon this consent.
At what stage exactly? Yep, that's what I'm wondering. At what stage?
The main tenant, Lucan's worst kept secret. They don't really want to be known until we have site plan approval in place, because they just don't want to go out there and say, hey, this is happening, and then something happens where site plan doesn't go through and the project falls apart. So once we get further along with the approvals, I would think we'd be a lot more comfortable announcing who all we have on a formal basis.
Yeah, because when I get asked, I always just, because I don't know, you're a future owner, so that's what I was wondering. So after that stage, that's when you would start announcing.
Yeah.
And we would hope to have site plan approval in August, David, wouldn't we?
I was thinking July, actually, Laverne.
Well, you're more of an optimist, and maybe we can. I don't know, but I think I know that we need these severances done in order to satisfy the Ministry of Transportation, and and if I could just say, Madam Mayor and committee members. Council members, committee members, I do have the severance draft plan here, and also a site plan of what we're proposing by way of commercial that explains very quickly what we're after here tonight in terms of the 20-meter road with daylight triangles, the 20-meter easement to satisfy the access requirements of MTO. And of course, this access may be a future public street, so that's why it's 20 meters wide. Mm-hmm. So we've looked at Dan's report, and of course, as usual, it's very thorough, and the conditions, and we're satisfied with them. We just hope we can get on to correct this one condition in the previous consent and satisfy the Ministry of Transportation with respect to the shared access, which what this consent is really about mostly. If you'd like to see the site plan or the reference plans, I got them here. You just need to allow me to share screen.
Sure, if you want to pull that up, if we can see that, that would be great. I don't know who's hosting.
I think if Mr. Fitzgerald, actually, if I can, Madam Mayor, if I can get him to put it up on the screen there, that should work.
So you can share his screen.
Yep, he should be able to put it up there.
Through the mayor, yeah, sorry, I was trying to share it earlier, but I do have access now.
Okay, there you go.
So, okay, this isn't exactly the one I have, but it certainly is the one that went in earlier, and the dark bounded property is the commercial within the urban growth boundary, and that's being severed from the larger parcel, the lands to be retained, as it's called. And now the broken lines through that severed portion where it reads 20-meter right-of-way easement lands to be severed, that's what we're asking you to do tonight, to sever those lands from that commercial parcel that has already been severed.
Okay. Right, are there any questions now that the drawing's been shared? Did you want to speak to this one, Mr. Kirkness?
This is just a draft reference plan as opposed to an illustration, and the part 2 shows the
Right.
20-meter road with the daylight triangles, and that creates 2 parts, one to each side of it. That's why you have a 3-part reference plan, but this is the plan that we would put in to fulfill one of the conditions, which would be the surveyed reference plan dividing the property into those 3 parts. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, any other further questions or comments?
I do, Madam Mayor. It's Daniel.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam
Councillor
Mayor.
Regan.
Thank you. I'm not sure who can answer. I'm looking at that site plan, and then I'm thinking about that volume of traffic, and I'm just wondering if we're looking at another light.
No, we aren't looking at another light. We are kind of through our traffic impact assessment. There's no requirement for a light, but there is a requirement for some left turn lanes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Laverne. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep. Anything further from the committee? Okay, so with that in mind, I don't know, Mr. Kirkness or Mr. Traer, if you had anything else to add before I call the motion?
No, we don't.
Great, thank you. So there is a recommended motion in front of you, and I am not going to read it because it is fairly lengthy. I'll read the meat of it, but I'm not going to, there's a number of conditions that are associated with the motion. I'm not going to read it. If anybody wants to look at that, I would encourage that's watching the meeting, I would encourage you to look back on our agenda through our website, but it's fairly lengthy, and I don't think you want to hear me read for the next 12 minutes. So the motion is that the applications for consent B-4/2021 and B-5/2021 filed by SBM Engineering and Planning, care of Laverne Kirkness on behalf of Paul and Sue Manders, care of Westdale Development Corporation, to sever a portion of lands currently located within the Village of Lucan settlement area from a larger portion of lands currently located outside of the Village of the Lucan settlement area, with a frontage of approximately 220.2 acres, that's 721.7 feet, on Main Street, and an area of approximately 3.76 hectares or 9.29 acres, and the remnant parcel having a frontage of approximately 251.68 meters, that's 825.5 feet on Richmond Street, and an area of approximately 18.07 hectares or 44.6 acres from a property legally described as part of lots 3 and 4, Biddulph, part 1 of reference plan 33R 20363 in the township of Lucan Biddulph, county of Middlesex, be granted. And then, as I say, there's a number of conditions that apply to that recommendation, and then the reasons as stated. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All opposed. And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a great evening.
You as well.
Thank you. All right, and now, I'm following this correctly. We have to rise out of the committee adjustments, and now we're moving into a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider number of applications. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that motion, please. Councillor Regan and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. Okay, so the first application that is in front of us in the public meeting is for a property on Stonehouse Line. The applicant is Steve Thomas. And Dan, again, over to you, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application before council tonight is to rezone a provisionally severed parcel of land as a result of a surplus residential severance, which is application B15-2020. So as a condition of the consent application, the owner is required to rezone the provisionally severed portion of land from the general agricultural A1 zone to the surplus dwelling or SD zone, and the remnant farmland from the general agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural A3 zone. The effect of the proposal is to recognize the residential use of the severed portion of lands, as well as to prohibit the construction of a residential dwelling on the remnant farmlands. So as committee may recall, the subject property as a whole is a 41.4 hectare farm parcel, which is located on the west side of Stonehouse Line, south of the intersection at Stonehouse Line and Observatory Drive. It contains two areas identified as significant woodlands in the Middlesex Natural Heritage System Study, one being at the back of the agricultural property or west portion, and the second being located along the southeastern boundary. The property also is partially regulated along the portion of the rear and south boundary. The property is an existing agricultural parcel of land and is surrounded by agricultural lands, which are also in crop production. The lands are designated agricultural areas in the county official plan, agricultural and natural areas in the township official plan, and zoned currently a general agricultural A1 zone, according to the township comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant has received provisional consent as noted through the approval of committee on April 20th, 2021. And that was for consent application B15-2020 as well as B3/2021. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is necessary to meet the requirements both of the conditions of consent as well as the requirements of contained within the provincial policy statement, county official plan, as well as the local official plan. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is considered appropriate and meets the requirements of the PPS, county official plan, and local official plan, and does recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment as identified in the planning report be approved, and that the implementing zoning bylaw be brought forward upon receipt of a deposited reference plan. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. Any questions or comments? This property has been in front of us a couple of times. And just so that everybody is aware, the applicants has got a representation on our call in case there's any questions or clarifications that are required by council. So is there any questions, any concerns, clarifications? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I see I'm very familiar with the property, obviously. I see that there's the ponds are outside of the area to be severed. So I don't know what will happen to those. I assume that that'll be at the discretion of the farmland owner. But I still continue to be concerned about the 5 acres of tree plantation. And I know that they're protected to some extent, but can be designated as cropland as trees are a crop. So I still, I'm still concerned about what will happen to that tree plantation. But other than that, I have no other questions.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I'm not sure, like maybe just a comment or quite. I thought when we discussed this the last time, I thought for sure the trees are totally protected, Alex. Counselor, sorry, I thought that there was, it was a, not provincial, but county. And there was no way that they could be taken out. Is that true? I just refreshed my memory. Dan, maybe Dan can help me with that?
Yeah, Dan's
Please.
shaking his head. He
Okay,
can
thank you.
speak, he can speak to the county policy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so through the chair, the county has a pretty progressive stance on woodlot conservation, especially with woodlots that are identified as significant natural heritage features or woodlots as protected in the Natural Heritage System study. So in this case, that particular woodlot is identified as a natural heritage feature as well as a woodlot. So it does have full protection from the county perspective, and any removal thereof would be the county would seek basically they would seek conviction of removal and require that it be replanted as currently.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so with that in mind, you do have a recommended motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Regan, seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next application in front of us, and this is with a property on Saintsbury Line. And again, Dan, over to you.
So through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose and effect of the application, which is before council tonight, is to provide a recommendation regarding a proposed temporary use zoning bylaw amendment to temporarily permit 2 dwellings on the same parcel. The effect would be to allow for an individual to live in their current home with a new single detached dwelling currently under construction. The subject land is a 5.5 acre parcel of land, which is located on the west side of Saintsbury Line, north of the intersection at Saintsbury Line and Kent Ave. The lands are zoned a site-specific future residential exception zone, or an FR-5, and they are designated residential in the township official plan. So as noted in the report, the applicant previously received a temporary use approval to permit 2 dwellings on the land while one was being constructed, which did expire on June 6th of 2021. The applicant has only recently begun construction of the new dwelling in May of 2021. They have reapplied for permission to live in the existing home while the new one is being built. So as stipulated in the temporary use agreement, which is attached to the planning report, the applicant would be permitted to live in the existing dwelling while the new dwelling is being constructed. The owner would then be required to remove the existing home within 6 months of occupancy of the new dwelling. Included in the temporary use agreement is a requirement of a $5,000 security to ensure the removal of the existing home. Should the applicant not remove the home in accordance with the agreement, the township would be permitted to initiate the removal of the existing home. The proposed temporary use bylaw is consistent with the requirements of Section 39 of the Planning Act. Additionally, the proposal does meet the requirements as stipulated in the county official plan as well as the township official plan. So given the above, planning staff does recommend that the temporary use bylaw be approved and that council execute the temporary use agreement. Thank you, and I'm available for any.
Thank you. Any questions for Jan on this one? Councillor Regan.
Just a quick question for Dan, if I could, Madam Mayor. If we have to remove, the township has to remove a home, that's at the owner's expense, right? That's not at our expense.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So you would be subject to the provisions of Section 67 of the Planning Act, which would allow you to recover any cost through adding it to the tax roll of the property.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Okay. I know that there was going to be a member of the public that wanted to speak to this, so I don't know if the one on the phone, is that Ms. Morrison on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So I don't know how much you've heard of the planning application, but we are talking about the application on the Saintsbury property, the Cabral one, and I'm just entertaining questions from council, and then I will ask you if you've got any comment, okay?
So you're just starting this portion because I've been here on the whole time and haven't heard anything.
Okay, so we've heard the planner's report, and now I'm entertaining questions from council, and then I will
so
ask.
I didn't hear the planner's report.
Okay, so the planner's report is that there's an application in front of us that a resident on Saintsbury Line is building a new home and needs a temporary use bylaw to keep the other home still standing. So that, and the recommendation from the planner is that that be granted. So right now I'm just entertaining questions from council, and then I will ask you if you've got any comments or questions on the application, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any further comments or questions from council on this application? Okay, Ms. Morrison, did you have comment on this application?
Well, I submitted, I want it recorded that I did submit a whole list of questions today, which I got them and most of my answers. But I do have concerns about that property. So I will see how the process goes forward, but I want to be ensured that that shed and that property is not rezoned in any way for commercial use. That it's not going to be a storage facility, et cetera, et cetera. And I am concerned about the 2 laneways and the laneway that accesses that shed on that same property.
Okay. Your comments are noted and they will be considered in the, or they will be included in the file.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. One last call for questions or comments. Okay, then there is a recommended motion in front of you, and if I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Reagan. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay, and we now do have an application for an amendment to draft plan of the subdivision of Old Clover Village, and this one I will again hand over to Dan.
Thank you, members of council and through the mayor. The purpose and effect of the application is to the request for a minor red line amendment to an approved draft plan of subdivision, that being file number 39T-LB 1301, also known as Phase 4B of the Old Clover Village subdivision. The subject lands, as you can see here, are located on north of Richmond Street or Highway 4 and east of Saintsbury Line or County Road 47, as shown on the map. The lands are affected, the lands affected include the undeveloped balance of the Old Clover subdivision, currently known as Phase 4B. Draft plan approval was issued by the County of Middlesex on January 14th, 2014 originally. And a subsequent red line amendment was approved on December 2nd, 2019. The lands are currently zoned a site-specific residential first density holding zone, which permits single detached dwellings, as well as a site-specific residential third density zone holding, which does, R3-5, which does permit both single detached dwellings as well as street townhomes. So the current draft plan approval consists of 58 lots, of which of those 58 lots, 11 did receive final draft plan approval as part of Phase 4, which can be seen as the lower area in the midpoint of the plan. That's kind of dashed in as part of Phase 4. It was approved originally for single detached dwellings and also did include 2 blocks for multifamily development, which were permitted also to be single family homes. In addition, it included a connection of Abbey Lane straight through to the budding lands to the east, which can kind of be seen ghosted in black underneath the red proposed amendments on this plan. The applicant's revised proposal would facilitate the development of 55 new single detached residential lots, in addition to the original 11, as well as a realignment of the road network to a 90-degree cul-de-sac for Abbey Lane, and would also include a proposed block, which is shown in the midpoint here on Watts Drive as block 56, for potential future access to the abutting lands to the east. This would effectively create an extension of Stewart Avenue through this portion of lands into the adjacent parcel lands. The proposed red line to the draft plan approval of subdivision, as is noted in the planning report, does represent a minor change, which would result in the efficient use of lands. No objections have been received during the circulation period of the application prior to writing the report. I would note that planning did receive subsequent questions regarding the proposed access points or the extension of Stewart Avenue as a block rather than a road allowance today. I would note that the block is identified in the preliminary draft conditions as a reserve block for a road allowance, and it would be required to be transferred to ownership of the township in a future subdivision agreement. Due to the uncertainty of development of the abutting lands, planning staff would recommend that this approach is appropriate and would provide the township with a greater amount of flexibility for the future. So based on the planning report, planning staff is recommending that the county of Middlesex be advised by the township of Lucan Biddulph that they support the red line amendment request and that no further notice be required. Thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks for that, Dan. Okay, any questions or comments from council on this application? Nope. Okay, we do have the applicant with us. I didn't know if Mr. Fung, you had any comment that you wanted to make at this point?
No, no further comment. I think everything was covered. If anybody else has questions, I'll be here to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And we do have a member of the public that asked to be on this. And Mr. Boa, did you have any comments or questions at this point?
Yes, I have one comment. Specifically, it's relating to block 56. So on the issue of the red line revisions, as shown on drawing that's on page 28 of the council agenda, my concern is that the stub indicated as block 56 is not actually shown as a right-of-way continuation of Stewart Avenue, but merely identified as block 56. By not identifying this stub as a right-of-way, this leaves me lesser assurance that in the future it will be the continuation of Stewart Avenue to Old Clover Drive. Assuming that the red line revisions shown on page 28 are approved, and then the revised draft plan of subdivision is registered, identifying block 56 as a right-of-way provides greater confidence that it will remain as a right-of-way, since I assume a road closure process would then have to be advertised and followed if a change in the status of this stub is requested in the future. My request is therefore that block 26 be revised to be identified as Stewart Avenue. This request is no different than the status of the extension of Old Clover Drive being shown as a right-of-way on page 28 as part of Plan 33M792. On the other hand, leaving the revision to be block 56 allows it to be more easily changed to either a lot in the future or combined with an abutting parcel of land for another purpose, thus changing the concept of Stewart Avenue being extended as a through road as illustrated on page 37. If council is committed to Stewart Avenue being extended as a future extension of Stewart Avenue to Old Clover Drive, then please direct that this change be made. Thank you. That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I see it now. Okay, thank you for those comments, Mr. Boa. Any other comment on that? Deputy Mayor.
I'd like our staff or Dan or someone to respond to George's comments.
Okay. I saw Jeff's hand go up and I saw Dan unmute. So who wants to?
Yeah, through the chair, maybe from the township's perspective, I'll let Jeff speak and then I can fill in from a planning
Perspective? Yeah. Okay, Jeff?
Yes,
Uh,
the
oh.
intention.
I think we're talking, sorry, Jeff Little, I think. Sorry, Jeff Fung. I forgot there was two Jeffs. So we're talking Jeff Little, Public Works. Okay, certainly.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I could, and when we looked at this, it's certainly, it's nice to keep flexibility in how we design further on, because the land's outside there, although Stewart Ave is showing that it could extend through. We have no direct plans on that land that actually is outside there. So when we looked at this, it's nice to keep that flexibility so that at some point in the future, if it does decide to change, then we have that ability, and that's basically what we're looking at. So.
Okay, and then Dan.
Yeah, so through the chair to members of council and deputy mayor. So it's honestly, it's a matter of preference from the local township perspective as to how they want to proceed. Jeff is correct that the keeping it as a block in a draft plan of subdivision does provide for a greater amount of flexibility for the future. It is uncertain as to what happens in the land behind there, but reserving it as a block would provide you with the leniency, I guess, to either establish that as a potential future lot or establish that as an access point into the lands to the east. So what I would note is the block is identified in the draft plan preliminary conditions as a reserve block for a road allowance, and would be required to be dedicated to the township through the subdivision agreement and through the final plan of subdivision. So regardless of where it sits at the end of the day, the township will own that portion of land, whether it be a road allowance or a block, and then they can decide how they want to proceed in the future. It's just a matter of preference as to how you would like it identified on the plan.
Okay. And then, so I guess from your perspective, Jeff, just leave Jeff Little, just leave it as the block, right?
Yeah, just label it as the block. If the lands behind you get developed or get designed, then it certainly is available to be a road, and then we can move forward with it being the road. But if we label it as a block, it gives us that flexibility.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comment? Or Mr. Boa, I'll give you one last chance to respond.
Yes, I'm looking at the plan which shows Old Clover being as a portion of a right-of-way. On that stub, essentially, Old Clover was going to be possibly extended further. Right now, it looks like Francis Avenue in the future extending over might be the only connection. That would leave way too many lots or housing on one access point for fire protection. I am concerned that by not committing to extending Stewart Avenue, you are limiting the amount of lots that would have fire protection. I mean, a lot of municipalities don't allow cul-de-sacs more than 26 to 30 to 32 lots on one single road access, public road access, without an emergency access. So I am concerned that by leaving it as a block, you are leaving that door open for that possibility to occur.
Okay, thank you for that. And we will make note of those comments. All right, any other questions or comments from council?
I guess I will follow up with George through to the staff. Is there, so you don't feel it's a concern leaving it a block with George's concerns that if we leave it as is that correct, staff?
Maybe I'll just quickly through the chair. So because it's identified as a future road reserve in the draft plan conditions, and it will be transferred to the municipality through the subdivision agreement, I don't have a concern because any future development, say on the lands abutting to the east, Mr. Bowe is correct, would require an access point. So the municipality retains that road allowance or reserve block for future access to a Stewart Ave extension. So from that perspective, no, I wouldn't have any concern leaving as a block versus road allowance.
Okay. By leaving it as a block, we don't essentially pen ourselves in. We're given the option of being able to extend that.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. We don't know what will happen on the lands, on the abutting lands, so it may be needed, it may not be needed. So if you leave it as a block, then there's more, you have more flexibility.
More flexibility. Okay, thank you. All right, were there any other staff comments to that question? Okay. All right, then if there aren't any more comments from council, you do have a recommended motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. And all opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to stay. We're now going to move into our court of revision. And so the motion that is in front of you is that council adjourn its public meeting, act meeting, or I'm sorry, actually, before I do that, Dan, so that you don't need to stay for the whole meeting, there are two bylaws at the end of at the end of our meeting. Did you want to speak to them just to give council a little bit of a heads up on that? Sorry.
Through the chair to all the members of council. Yeah, so there are two, sorry, I just got to pull up here. There are two bylaws that are attached to the council agenda tonight. Both are bylaws for the implementing zoning of surplus farmhouse dwelling severances. So council has already previously approved both applications with respect to both the consent as well as the zoning, with the stipulation that the zoning bylaw be brought forward once the municipality had received a reference plan. So in both instances, we have received the reference plan and we now deem it appropriate to move forward and rezone the lands. And that would basically constitute the clearance of the condition of their consent filed. So we are recommending in both those instances that those be passed. And if anyone has any questions, I'll certainly answer them.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Any questions on those bylaws before we move on? Okay, thanks for that background, Dan. I appreciate it. Okay, so the recommended motion in front of us now is that we adjourn our Public Planning Act meeting in order to sit as the Court of Revision under the Drainage Act to consider the Blake Drain Addendum 2021, and that Mayor Kathy Burkhart-Jessen be appointed as chair. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's carried. So now we're sitting as a court of revision, and this, of course, is for the Blake Drain 2021 addendum. And Jeff is actually going to take us through this tonight.
Yeah, we'll start, Madam Mayor, that there has been no appeals brought forward on this. so that no one's come forward. So we'll just keep moving along. I don't know if there's any questions. We can open it for questions. I think it's a little bit confusing here because we've already dealt with the Blake drain, and this is just an addendum to it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, are there any questions from council on it, on the addendum? Okay, seeing none, then we have to make a decision, and the recommended motion is in front of you. And that would be that we adopt the assessment schedule that was dated on May 14th. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Regan and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders. And all opposed. That's carried. And now I would ask for a mover and a seconder that the Court of Revision be closed at 6:50 in order to reconvene our regular council meeting. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Westman, Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. And so now we are sitting as regular council. And we do have a delegation with us tonight. And I'm pleased to welcome our good friend, Tony Camiso, from Frank Cowan, although there is a change of names, which I'm sure he's going to bring us up to date on. But I will turn it over to you, Tony. It's great. I think you know everybody on the screen. It's great to see you and hope this finds you well. And thank you for joining us. Over to you. And you're muted.
Let's try that.
There you go.
Is that much better? Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to address council. I prepared a little bit of a script, Madam Mayor, just so I can stay on point. The document I provided Tina really went into detail about what some items I'll be addressing council today. But the items I have, I'm going to break them down into 3 points. So I'll just begin, and of course, I want to leave enough time for any questions or comments that any councilors might have after the fact. And I do want to apologize for any potential background noise that you may hear. It is bath night at the Camiso house, and my wife is trying to bath 3 children by herself. So bear with me here. Okay. So I want to thank you, staff and council, for this opportunity to address you today. My name is Tony Camiso. I work for Intact Public Entities. Our company has been in business for over 90 years, specifically providing insurance programs for municipalities and other public entities. Intact Insurance purchased Frank Cowan Company in 2019, and we are currently in the middle of a rebrand. So our logo and our name has officially changed. Some of you have maybe already seen those changes. Before I talk about the current municipal market trends involving insurance, I wanted council to know that while we do have a new owner, the fundamental product and services that we have always provided municipalities has not changed. Municipal insurance is still our bread and butter. We still have the same management team as before the purchase, and we actually added 18 new employees since 2019. So I think it's very important for you all to know that, because with so much change happening in our lives, at least when it comes to your insurance, it's the same team of people that are helping you in the municipality and the same people that your staff have come accustomed to dealing with over the years. So I want to break it down into 3 points, like I mentioned. The first, I want to talk about what's happening in the world of municipal insurance. Number 2, I want to talk about what Lucan Biddulph can expect for their upcoming insurance renewal. And then 3, I want to talk about potential ways to offset some of those rate increases. So number 1, why is municipal insurance rates skyrocketing? This is the primary reason why I'm here today. Municipalities across Ontario and other parts of Canada are seeing their annual insurance costs skyrocket. I believe there are 2 main reasons for this happening. One of them is for the fact that insurance markets are cynical. So in the insurance world, there are 2 markets. There are soft markets and hard markets. Soft markets are basically when the insurance companies are lined out the door to write your business. In the hard market, it's the very opposite. And what happens now, or what we're dealing with right now in the market, is insurance companies become very strict on the business that they underwrite, for how much they underwrite it for and how much coverage they provide. Hard markets from a historical point of view have occurred three times. Happened once in the early 70s, then again in the mid 80s, and then again in the early 2000s. They last about 3 to 4 years, and then a soft market will come in and really balance things out. So we just came out of a very long and unusually long soft market, which ended in 2019. So again, that's one of the reasons I think why the costs are really escalating over the last 12 months. The second reason is the cost of claims. So the continued escalation of cost of claims are what's really driving the current rate increases. And that's mainly what the document that I provided council that our president drafted really hits the nail on the head for. And I'm gonna just take bits and pieces of that I think I really want to kind of hit the home run here and just really make my point. So there is a continuing trend that shows we as a society have become much more litigious and demonstrate much less personal accountability, resulting in a higher frequency and severity of claims. In response, judges have awarded more contributory negligence towards municipalities versus plaintiffs. Damage awards have been substantial. A number of years ago, it was even alarming to hear about a $5 million liability award, while today, those are becoming much more frequent. Court awards for severe bodily injury claims have increased in the last 10 years alone. Claims, which were settled for a few million just 10 years ago, are now settling between $12 to $18 million on average. These awards are primarily driven by the cost of future care for catastrophically injured plaintiffs. Municipalities specifically have a large exposure for this type and size of damage award and are currently feeling that impact through the cost of claims, through the cost of insurance. The cost of defending those claims are also going up. The individual claims are much more complex to defend and have resulted in more time to manage those claims, which are involving much more detailed investigations, more experts, and more legal time in that entire process, again, with increasing rates. The second part involves property losses. So the first part I was referencing third-party liability lawsuit claims, where third parties are suing municipalities for bodily injury or property damage. Now I want to focus on physical property losses. So these are physical assets that you own as a corporation that we're seeing more frequent and severe claims. And this is a result from climate change. So climate change has resulted in a substantial increase in property losses and catastrophic losses. Regardless of whether it's impacted your municipality directly, the escalation of the cost of claims has increased in both property insurance and reinsurance rates worldwide. Insurers have statistically seen more weather-related losses than ever before. So whether you believe in climate change or not, I can tell you that the insurers simply do. And this is one of the stats I pulled off that document, Madam Mayor. It's 7 of the top 10 most significant weather-related insurance losses have happened in the last 10 years. So between 2009 and 2019, national severe weather losses across the country averaged about $1.9 billion annually. In the decades before that, from 1983 to 2008, the average total for severe weather-related losses was $422 million. The third reason, which I think are causing rates to go up, also involves the insurer's ability not to catch up with these rates, but because of the low interest rates. So insurers have always used the premiums collected to invest that money to offset these claim losses. So we're now over a decade of historical low interest rates, which is great if you're borrowing money, but not so good if you're investing it. And this has produced very poor results for the insurance companies, which they're not accustomed to. So combine all that and with the fact that claims are escalating faster than the inflation rate, and the insurers are forced to increase their rates. So this brings me to my second point, which is what can Lucan Biddulph expect? And it's the same that all your neighbors have either recently seen or that are expecting, but you can expect a double-digit insurance adjustment in the forecast. And the current average in the province right now is about 18%. Again, that's just the average. I think Lucan Biddulph can expect anywhere between 15 to 25%, but it's just too early for me to know for sure today. Your renewal isn't until September. So since the municipality also has open insurance claims, which we are still investigating, I'll need probably another month or more to narrow down that range a little bit tighter, just so staff can have a more accurate number to budget for. But statistically speaking, I just did a claims audit on your municipality last week, and we've actually have 5 straight years of increasing claim severity with your municipality. So that means that your claims activity has increased for 5 straight years. I don't want to alarm anyone. I don't want to sound like it's a really, really bad thing. It's actually really consistent with what a lot of other municipalities in Ontario are seeing, and which brings me back to my first point about how we're seeing more claims and how they're costing more. So my last point is, how can you as a municipality try and offset some of these rate increases? And to be really short and to the point, it's risk management. I think council needs to remember that it's been over 20 years since the insurance industry has really inflated their rates like this. If you talk to other insurance professionals in the industry, they'll all tell you it's probably 10 years overdue. And, the last time this happened was in the early 2000s. So the rates are coming, they're increasing. It's affecting every municipality and all public entities, to be frank. So a lot of municipalities and staff will ask me, well, okay, Tony, well, can we just increase our deductibles? Can that save us some money? Well, yeah, but that's, in my opinion, that's just short-term thinking. The best solution is to migrate the losses from happening. So if you can prevent an insurance claim from happening, you're only going to help yourself in the long run. So I always tell staff and I tell council, just continue to send us agreements, contracts, anything of that nature. If there's a project, staff and council need to think about, well, what are the liability implications? Is there an insurance clause that's protecting the municipality? Asking these types of questions are very important, as it prevents claims from ever even happening. And our team, we can review those situations and the material and advise the municipality on those clauses on how to proceed. And again, I just want to make this point clear. Preventing claims will only help your municipality's overall loss ratio and will make an immediate impact. Council and staff should remain risk adverse and don't shy away from asking those types of questions from your suppliers and contractors or any other party that you're getting into agreements with. And one last point I have here is, I really hope that you've all had a chance to sign up for our free webinars. Everyone knows that in the past, Frank Cowan Company and now Intact Public Entities, we participated at every major municipal conference, and we use those opportunities to provide risk management education sessions in person. And we will do that again once we are able. But for the foreseeable future, I ask, please register for those webinars and just educate yourselves on how to reduce those claims and how to reduce that, severity of those losses that, municipalities are having. And you'll just give yourself more ammunition to better defend yourself. So I've rambled on. I've gotten my points across, Madam Mayor. I obviously want to leave time for questions. I hope the background noise wasn't too bad. There's a couple of times there it threw me off track, but I think we're good to go.
Well, I think you kept on track. And you know what? That's just the joys of virtual meeting. You got to put up with the noise in households, and we're just, that's the way it is. So we're happy. We're happy. They sounded happy, so that's all that matters. Okay. Any questions for Tony? Thank you very much for that thorough report, Tony. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't even imagine telling residents that there's a 25% increase in their taxes. So I'm really having a hard time with that. I'm just wondering, first of all, why was there such a lapse in 10 years? All of a sudden now it's been 10 years and there's been, you're saying no really big increases at all. Now it's 18 to 25%. That's sort of my first question or concern. The second one is, what are the common claims, and why would that, you say that our claims have risen and we've gone through, and like, I'm just kind of interested in what those kinds of things were. And again, the one that concerns me the most was that, there's just been this lapse and nothing's really happened. So all of a sudden it's like, bang, it's 18%. I said, I can't imagine going to a ratepayer and saying, 18%, because we haven't, increased it in 10 years. So I'm just wondering what the response would be. I guess the other question too, so while I've got you there, is specifically, I mean, you mentioned going webinar, but specifically, what can we do to mitigate this? Like, if you're the experts, you need to tell us what we need to be doing, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. And Madam Mayor, through you, I'll say, I think with the lapse in timing, no one can really predict when the markets go up and down. If I did, I'd probably doing something different than selling insurance, to be honest with you. It's something that's very unpredictable. Some experts are saying it's really based on the fact that over just the last 10 years, there was this huge uptick in property loss claims. So, a big example a lot of insurance people talk about is like Fort McMurray. There's an entire town that was engulfed in flames. Well, guess what? All those houses were insured. All those commercial buildings were insured. Though that was the biggest insured loss that Canada's ever seen. And we're having more type of events like that. Rather it's flooding. Like flooding is now a huge issue throughout Ontario alone, but throughout Canada. So I think what's happened is these insurance companies, they were playing catch up the whole time, and then all of a sudden these weather related losses have just pushed them over the brink. It's just too much now. So they've just flipped a switch and said, that's it. Carte blanche, we got to start increasing everything across the board. And I've seen it with my personal insurance. I've seen it with commercial insurance. It just seems that rates have had to be corrected. What can you do as an individual municipality? Well, your staff are basically already doing it. I just got an agreement, I think it was a week and a half ago, regarding a water supply. Again, your staff sent it in. Our team looked at it. We provided tons of recommendations in terms of what the insurance requirements should be for that contractor who's going to be performing work for the municipality. So that way, if there ever is a claim, the contractor's insurance is going to respond versus the townships being dragged in. And then your third question regarding what types of claims, majority of townships typically see a lot of liability claims. Most municipalities see liability claims. These involve slip and fall claims on your property, and they involve road liability claims. So road accidents that happen on your roadway where there's alleged improper road design, improper road signage, improper road maintenance, specifically winter road maintenance. So if you can think of any time there's a major accident within your municipality, there's a good chance you're going to get sued for it down the road, even if they're just bringing you into the action to see if there's any lapse in your records. Can you prove that your plow was going down the road, that day before that storm hit to lay down salt and sand? And if you can't, guess what? If you can't prove it, we got to settle. That's a claim right there. So these are happening to municipalities smaller than Lucan Biddulph and bigger than Lucan Biddulph. They're happening to everyone. And I don't want to downplay the insignificance of the rate increase. I get it. It's large. I've had very difficult meetings with staff across Ontario for the last 18 months. It's been very stressful. And the issue is the rates are going up, but your core insurance coverage is remaining intact. And I think that's something that I don't do a good enough a job explaining. A lot of insurance companies, when the times get tough, they don't only jack your premiums up, but they also slash your coverage. They'll start putting limitations on what they'll pay out. And our product has not changed in that manner. We're not slashing what we're covering or how much we're covering it for. We're not increasing your deductibles. We have not implemented any mandatory deductible increases. And I can't say that for a lot of other municipalities, but the ones that are insured with our company, we've remained that core package. We've kept it intact. And I think that's something that I don't want to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying it could be a lot worse, but at the same time, I understand it is a frustrating time and it is temporary. I hope this is the second year of a 3-year cycle where we're going to see these challenging rates, and then everything will balance out. Things will calm down. And here's another statistic I just noticed. Your 7-year average in terms of rate adjustments is actually around 3%. So it's relatively flat speaking. So you're right. It's why the big gap? Well, if I had a crystal ball, I wish I could answer that more clearly, but it's just been a challenging time.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question, Madam Mayor?
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering is the 18 to 25% rate for Lucan Biddulph, is that based on the claims that we've had, or is that just, we're looking at every municipality in Ontario or Canada and we're saying that's kind of the average, because they had, and I'm not making light of any situation, they've had natural disasters in other places and they've had all kinds of claims and again, I'm not making light of it. It's just that, are we looking specifically at Lucan Biddulph? Because if hypothetically, if a community had a really good record, would they still be getting an 18 to 25% increase? As opposed to an area that didn't. I mean, I pay insurance too, so I know how it works. I'm just wondering, is that our rate based on what we've done, or is that based on just an average of everybody in the country?
Great question. And through you, Madam Mayor, it's a combination. I combined it. 18 is the current average for this quarter. Fourth quarter 2020, it was actually 23%. Second quarter 2020, it was closer to 26%. So if you picture a graph, it's slowly, teetering or leveling off, and then hopefully starting to go the other way. But it's a combination of your claims activity and what's happening throughout the province. That's the best I can answer that question.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Well, with our events in our community, for instance, Santa Claus Parade, I heard of other communities, and I don't know, there was an awful event. I think a child broke out to grab some candy or something. I think got run over, maybe killed somewhere in Canada. And there was different communities canceling their Santa Claus Parade. And I think some of it had to do with they wanted to mitigate that liability. The risk was there. They felt it was too high a risk. Also, I've seen communities where they'll barricade off the roadways, and you got to really step back on these Santa Claus parades. So on something like that in our community, is that something you've got in the event that's high risk that we could do anything to help mitigate that's causing, like towns that do have the Santa Claus Parade, things like that? Or is that just a decision by those communities saying, hey, you know what, we're just going to mitigate that and not have a potential claim?
Yeah, very sad. You're right. She did pass away. It was a very sad situation. I can tell you that events like that do need to be discussed. We have some specific articles on our website which pertain to Santa Claus parades. I can send those to staff. They'll provide some recommendations on how to plan for future events, but I think it's worth the discussion. I don't want to cancel it, that's for sure. I don't think that's the solution. It's the same issue with tobogganing hills. There's a couple of years ago in Hamilton, a couple of significant injuries, and all of a sudden municipalities were closing every hill they could get their hands on. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think what needs to happen is let's find out which hills are the most popular, and let's find a way to make them safe. But the problem is it's like a moving target. So, this year it might work, but then next year you have to revisit that plan and find another solution. So by all means, if you guys are changing anything about, your parade, just, flip me the details. Let my team take a look. We have an entire department dedicated to prevent claims from happening. The municipality has full access to that department. There's no additional charge. There's no hidden fees by asking those types of questions. Our risk management team would love to digest it and come up with some positive solutions to help. But why those communities canceled it completely, I have no idea. I think that was very knee-jerk reaction. Maybe it was too close. Maybe there were neighboring municipalities. They were doing it out of respect for the family.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure.
Do you have follow-up, Dave?
No, thank you.
Okay. Right. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Paul.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Just if I may, to make council aware, my staff has attended a few of the presentations done by Frank Cowan, And we've been trying to implement that into our inspections to mitigate risks in the parks and the recreation areas in the community. Part of that, we've really been increasing our pushing of the program insurance that we offer. It was put in place a few years ago. It wasn't really well used before, but we're really making it an active effort to get it used. So we're trying to do our best as staff to really look at these risks and identify them. Quickly, while we have you, just one question. I know COVID-19 assumption of risk has become a big thing. We've put up signs everywhere, assumptions of risk. How successful have you seen those when it comes to actual litigation, that they actually protect us? Or is that just more, we're doing our best effort to make the public aware?
Great question. And through you, Madam Mayor, though we haven't had any specific cases that have been tested to date, the only COVID-related insurance claims that we've seen involve our long-term care facilities. I don't think it's, I think the public's aware there are multiple class action lawsuits against those facilities regarding, care of their residents in the, and that's a direct liability claim. But a signage claim directed towards a municipality, I have not seen a case to date. And I think you're doing the best thing that you can with the resources made available to you. And common sense would tell me that a judge would see that and understand that. And given the situation that we're all dealing with, would hopefully provide some leniency towards not, adding more negligence towards a municipality. You put up a sign, I know in my neighborhood, they put up the signs, but then someone takes them down. So, it's what else can a municipality do, right? So I get it. And as long as you can prove that you are doing it, or that you put up those signs, that's the best thing you can do. That's your best defense in court. And I think any defense lawyer would at least have some documentation to defend you in those types of claims. But I haven't seen a case yet, so it hasn't been tested yet.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I guess, Tony, you had mentioned about, it is cyclical insurance, and, now we're going to see, an upswing in rates, which of course we're experiencing. Hopefully it flattens out. Do you ever see the day where rates will come down?
Great question, Madam Mayor. Excellent question, actually. And I do see it, because I can't keep coming to council and asking for rate increases. That's not a solution to insurance, right? Insurance is a risk transfer. So I do see the day when the rates will come back down. And I think what has to happen is people like myself, and a lot of our management team at our company need to continue to educate everyone available, or anyone who's willing to listen, and by attending the webinars, or hopefully next year can come to our sessions. I think what will happen is municipalities will have to eventually take on more risk by maybe taking on higher deductibles. But I think municipalities will do that when the credits are available, meaning if you were to purchase a higher deductible, you want to see an instant credit given to your account. And then from there, you will then be able to apply that credit into a reserve fund, where then you can dictate those reserves to help offset future losses. Because, if you invest more into risk management and you invest more into your insurance program, you will definitely see a decrease in your insurance. I've already had examples in my short career with the company where a municipality will purchase a much higher deductible, but then there's more onus on staff to manage claims under your deductible. There's a little bit of a formalized process with our company when that happens. Will that happen with Lucan Biddulph? Who knows? I think that's probably 5 or maybe 10 years down the road before we get into that territory. But yeah, I do see the rates going down eventually. They have to, because they can't just keep going up. That's not a solution. It's just a reaction to the market. And I think good things are on the horizon. I just hope this is the last year of it, because I'm really tired of having to deliver bad news. So yeah, for my sake, I hope it changes soon.
So I know that AMO has worked quite diligently on the joint and severable liability issue. I just wonder, is there any headway being made with that?
Oh, another good question. Madam Mayor, you guys got good ones tonight. Okay.
Well, if you
So,
only come once a year, Tony, then, you know.
no, fair enough. Fair enough. So, for those of you who've been on council long enough, you know that our company is at the forefront at lobbying those efforts. We put a lot of resources to try and convince the provincial government to change it. Of course, there's been a change in provincial governments, even in my time with the company. So I think the attitude has changed over the few short years, but I think it has to change. I just don't know when. I don't know if it's a pressing enough issue yet. Maybe one more year of the struggle that the municipalities are seeing, maybe that will be enough to force the provincial government to take attention to it. But, I got to admit, that's not the how do you say it? The silver bullet. There's a lot of other variables at play. Joint and several liability is that's a whole nother delegation, because, you as a municipality are always going to be a target, and joint and several liability is, expanding that bullseye. So you're an even bigger target because of it, and removing it is going to help. Yes, definitely. But you won't see the immediate impact. And I think us as a company will continue to lobby. We have an obligation to do that for all of our clients, and we will continue to do that. I know our president is still pressing for it. I just don't foresee a short-term solution. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but maybe next year, but I do know we are still pushing, but sometimes you can push all you want and it just doesn't go somewhere. So,
Well, it's not a, from a provincial standpoint, it's not necessarily a topic that on the street is going to get them traction. In the long run, it could be a benefit to everyone, but it's not sexy enough for them, quite frankly, Anyways, any other questions or comments before we let Tony help his wife put his kitties to bed? Well, seeing none, I will thank you again for joining us tonight, Tony. We hope that the next time we see you, it'll be in person. And as always, I know the staff appreciates the relationship that they have with you and your team. And, you've always been great at being a phone call away, and there's no reason to believe that that'll change.
thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you
All right.
so much, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, good night. Moving on in our agenda, we are finally at our minutes. So we've got the minutes from June 15th in front of us. And unless nothing needed to be amended, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes as circulated. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? Those are carried. Okay. Business arising from the minutes. We've got a number of items in front of us. They're all ongoing. Nothing's going to be decided or discussed tonight. But if there's anything that needs to be added to business arising, if you can let staff know. On to correspondence. As always, there's been a number of items that we've received since we last met. And there's two that have been pulled for our discussion and our consideration. The first one is from Villages United with regards to a request for an exemption of rental fees. And I don't know who wants to speak to that. Paul?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yearly, the Village United Church rents the Granton Pavilion for their Vacation Bible School. This is a school that they provide free of cost to their members. And obviously with COVID-19, all the churches and organizations have felt a lack in fundraising these years, which is what they use to help offset these costs. So they are requesting for us to waive the fee of $360 for the 4 days, as they don't charge the people to attend, and it's a good childcare event for their members. And clearly fundraising has not been ideal for any of the churches or organizations in the town. So it's a quick summary for the council.
Great, thanks, Paul. Any discussion on that? I believe that if council was to entertain approving this, then it would be taken from the donation line in our budget. Alex, or Councillor Westman, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the Vacation Bible School is open to everybody, not just the members of the church. So kids that are kids of people who are not members actually do attend that because it's a good activity. There's a lot of stuff they do that's just fun, regular kid activity. So and I know that there's some crossover with the garden project as well. So that's kind of the crafts and stuff that go with that. So it's generally an overall community-based activity. So it's not just the church and their members. It's a community thing. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions or thoughts on the request? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just, yeah, no, I agree with that. It should come out of our budget for donations then, and because this might not be our first request and that can dry up pretty quick. So I think the procedure is they actually maybe pay and then we donate it back, I think, on paper. But anyways, however that's done, out of donations is the only way I'd be in favor of it. So.
Okay. All right, any other comments? If not, then we would need a motion to approve the request to have the money come from donations and that staff would work with I guess it came from Mr. Herbert, as to how that actually works on paper. Councillor Regan?
I would make that motion that those monies come from donations.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Westman. Excellent. Any further discussion? All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. The next item that's been highlighted this is a good newsletter, and I'm not sure who's going to take it from Municipal Affairs and Housing, but I think Ron might start with it, and I don't know if Catherine will speak to it, but Ron, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, as you said, this is a good news story. We've received approval for 4 of our joint modernization funding requests through the province. The first one is for joint payroll, human resources, and scheduling solutions. And we were successful in getting funding of up to $487,500 towards that. The second program was a joint asset management system solution, and that was funding up to $495,801. The third program was joint development review and approval process, and that was $97,500. And finally, we received funding of up to $65,000 towards a joint procurement processes review. So again, this is all sort of a joint project with all the lower tiers within the County of Middlesex, including the County of Middlesex itself. So it's been great. I think that's helped our funding request by coming together and sort of going for funding as a group. So again, this is going to be a work in progress over the next probably 6 to 12 months. But yeah, more information to come.
Great. Any questions on that announcement? Okay. Were there any items left in the balance of correspondence that council wanted to speak to? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a correspondence from the Solicitor General, and I think it's worth mentioning about, and just a reminder to people not to leave their pets in cars, because cars can heat up very, very quickly. I know we haven't had any sunshine lately, but again, it's just remind people maybe not to take any action. Really, they're not encouraged to do that, but to contact 911 because it is in fact an emergency. When I read that, I was actually quite happy they would consider it being that important. So just worth the mention to folks, just to be wary, because in 10 minutes you could end up losing your pet. So that's just because I'm a dog person. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Any other items that council wanted to highlight? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept those items for information, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? That's carried. Committee reports, Blue Water. Nothing. CEDC, I don't believe we have anything from that. We haven't met. No, Lisa's not going to chime in. Okay, nothing from Lake Huron, nothing from fire boards, ABCA and Upper Thames. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, we don't have an Upper Thames board meeting for the month of July, but we do have a Sable Bay filled next Thursday, not this coming Thursday. Not a lot to report other than that, with the openings, obviously the Wildwood, Fanshawe, and Piddock are doing more. There's lots of things going on there. You can access the beach at Wildwood. Boating, fishing, trails and all that are all open and ready to be used. So we certainly would welcome everybody to come on out. I know seasonal camping is active, and I'm thinking that I did read somewhere that they're looking at how to roll out other camping activities. So things are starting to resemble normal, and so we're looking forward to our guests coming back to the parks and what have you. Obviously, with the heavy rainfall, there's been some flooding activity, and so we are getting some flood reports as well. But that seems to be kind of coming and going with the rainfall. So other than that, that's pretty much it. We are trying to interpret the reopening like every other body is doing. So we're hoping to be able to get things back to a relative normal schedule for everybody.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that, Alex. Parks and Recreation, anything, Paul?
Through you, Madam Mayor, nothing new right now. There's several major projects obviously coming forward in Parks and Recreation. So we will be proposing one in the next few weeks, most likely, especially with phase 2 on the horizon and with our funding announcement for the multi-purpose court. So we're hoping to have one shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you. On to staff reports. Ron, you are up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first, the report is entitled Procedure for Council Vacancy Appointment. And this was an interesting one to write. I will say that going into this report, I thought there would be a couple of possible options. I think there's numerous different ways and different options that are available. But the point of this report is to try and get a procedure that's approved by you 4 members of council. And I think it's also important that the 5 candidates also know that process going in. So the discussion tonight will be surrounding what does that process look like. In the report, I've kind of laid out two possible scenarios that can, in the municipal act, it doesn't specify how council appoints a replacement. It only says you have 2 options. You can run a by-election or you can appoint. So council has chosen to appoint, but the municipal act doesn't specify anything further as to that process. So again, just to repeat myself, this is a meeting and a report to try and lay out what that looks like. So I expect a lot of discussion surrounding this report, but I won't go through the background, but we were fortunate enough to have 5 candidates put their name forward before the deadline. And those in alphabetical order are number 1, Wayne Hall, number 2, Jaden Hodgins, number 3, Adam Sachs, number 4, Andy Van Giel, and number 5, Pat Van Gluken. So we are fortunate in that we have 5 people. The unfortunate part is that makes your decision that much harder. So as part of the discussion, I was able to pull from a couple other municipalities what they do. This obviously being virtual throws a little bit more of a wrinkle into it. So what I'm proposing, as outlined in the report on page 2 of the report, is that the meeting, the council set a special meeting next Tuesday night starting at 6:30, at which time each of the 5 candidates will be given up to 5 minutes to sort of present whatever they wish to present to council. After each candidate has spoken, council will have an opportunity to ask questions. And then once all 5 have had the opportunity to present and council has had the opportunity to ask any questions, then it comes time to crunch time. How do you want to proceed? So I've given, under number 3, I've given 2 options there. Option A is a member of council will make a motion nominating one of the eligible candidates. If the first motion fails, another motion will be made to appoint a different candidate than the first motion. If the second motion fails, I've suggested that the unsuccessful candidate or the successful candidate will then be drawn by lot. And that really means that the names will be thrown in a hat. And yours truly, I think, will be the one to draw the name out of that. That is one possibility. There's variations of that under that option. Is it 2 motions? Is it 3 motions? Do you go through a motion for each one of the 5 candidates? You know, I've also heard if the first and second vote don't pass, and there's no further individual motions, do only the first and second candidates that are nominated or moved in the form of a motion, are those the only 2 names that go in a hat, for example? Or so there again, there's an infinite number of variations here. So option B is where the municipal clerk would poll each member of council individually. So I'd go in order of Ward 1, Ward 3, deputy mayor, and then mayor. And I would ask for the top 3 candidates' choices from each one of the members of council. The first top choice would be worth 5 points. The second choice would be worth 3 points, and the third choice would be 1 point. So it's kind of a spreadsheet after I go through each member of council, and you know, we would total up the points, and whoever the successful candidate was, that I would obviously share on the screen the results of the vote, and then there would be a motion afterwards to basically affirm that winning successful candidate. After that, so that again is option B. Again, you know, it's up to council, and this is where I would hope council would jump in and have lots of questions. But before we get to that, after that process, whatever process council finally decides, the appointment of the successful candidate has to be made by bylaw. So once the final winning candidate has been selected, there will be an appointment bylaw, and then after which the clerk, I as the clerk have to swear that candidate in. So I left it purposely open under part 5 of this report, that sometime between the meeting, which again is virtual on the 20th, and the next council meeting, that the successful candidate gets sworn in by the clerk. And we can certainly you know, do that live to Facebook or whatever with Lisa DeBoer doing the taping. We can do it in the council chambers again, because that's not as long as we don't exceed the numbers. So, and then finally, where a situation, number 6, where a situation occurs that is not otherwise accounted for in these procedures, the municipal clerk shall recommend an alternate process to council, which council may adopt with a simple majority vote. So that kind of is the catch-all phrase. If we've missed something in the process and it comes up on the 20th, you know, I guess I'm going to be in the hot seat to try and figure out, okay, how do we resolve this? And then that would, whatever my suggestion is, it would have to be approved by a majority vote of council. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'd throw that open to comments, questions, discussion.
Okay, and already the hands are up. So we'll start with the deputy mayor, and then we'll go to Councillor Reagan.
So just now that you've explained it, I was wondering, your option, I think it is A, is the one where one of us would make a motion for one of the candidates. And if it's seconded, then a vote would happen. And if there's a third person, then that person would be selected and it's done. If not, if it's just the 2, then wait and have someone else make a motion on a second candidate, same scenario. And then if it doesn't pass after that, they all go in a hat and it's a draw. And then if we all agree to that, regardless of the name pulled out, you would hope, since we all agreed to that process, that someone would first and second it and get a third. So we just agreed to that if we can't in the first 2 tries, that we pull out of a hat, and someone would make the motion to accept that. Since we're accepting that process, get a second or a third, and we're done. I like that. It's clean. Your recommendation, that's clean. I like it. Oh, sorry, and I meant to ask this question first. Ron can comment. Is just, have you checked with each candidate to see their availability of that date?
No, I haven't, because this has to be approved by council first, so.
Yep. So that date could change
But
potentially.
I will say that Tina has sent them an email advising them to try and hold that date.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's gonna be virtual anyways. Sorry, Ron, you're gonna comment, I believe, on what I said.
Yeah, and I forget what I was going to say now, but I think the question that arises in that scenario is, or in the perfect scenario, if there's one of the 5 candidates just literally blows everybody away with their 5-minute speech, for example, and you know, a member of council says, I'd like to make a motion to appoint candidate A, it gets seconder, and like you said, Mr. Deputy Mayor, if that vote is 3 votes for that candidate, we're done, and then that's the end of the process, and we move along. That's the easy way to do it. Whether that's the way it happens, if it's a 2-2 vote, a tie vote is a lost vote, and then it would go to the second motion. So, you know, it's a question of how many votes or how many motions does council entertain before it goes into a
well, that's what I mean. Your recommendation, I believe, I'm liking it. I believe or that's not wrong. Sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. Your recommendation, I thought, was 2.
That was my recommendation in the report. Yes.
Yep. So I like your recommendation.
But under that scenario, I just want to be clear. In your mind, you're saying that if the first motion fails for candidate A and the second motion fails for candidate B, that A, B, C, D, and E, all 5 candidates' names go into the hat for the draw.
All go in the hat. Yep. All go in the hat. And then the only question I have beyond that is just 1, 2. Yeah, because there's 2 between the 3 of us. We'll make 2 motions potentially. But I know what you're saying. I guess I don't know what you meant by by a person after their speech just jump in and make a motion. Myself, out of respect, I would want to, hopefully we'll hear them all speak, but I wasn't sure what you meant by knock us off our socks. But out of respect, I hope our council will hear them all talk. So
Exactly.
yeah, okay, no, I think anyway. Obviously, I like that, but I also love to hear from everybody else, obviously. So
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're very fortunate, of course, to have 5 very high quality candidates. We all need to be very, very grateful with that. I originally, and to be very honest, I had originally thought about just putting everybody's name in the hat, drawing by lot. And the Municipal Act allows us to do that. However, after conversations and talking it through and thinking it through, we need, I guess what we need to establish, first of all, I just want to be clear, is that we're all in agreement and we're going to agree that we're going to have the meeting on the 20th or whatever day everybody can be here. We have the 5-minute speeches. I'm just wondering if there's a criteria that we're giving all of the candidates so they have an idea of what it is I guess not telling them what to say, but just sort of what, what, is there a topic? Is it something that, I'm thinking about as a teacher? I mean, I'm going to be grading people on oral presentations, and I'm thinking, so what am I looking for here? What are the kinds of things that I'm looking for? Do we just leave it up to the candidates? Is that what we're going to do? I agree with the deputy mayor. So, and after you've said that, so we have it's like we have a first ballot, second ballot. So if we have somebody on the first ballot, somebody makes a motion on that evening, correct? That says that it's candidate A, a seconder, we vote, and if we get somebody, it's done. That's correct? That's what we're going to do. And if it doesn't happen, we don't get 2 people or 3 votes, and then we go to the second round. So we establish it at the second round. My question is that the people didn't get 3 votes, round 1 and round 2. My question about, do they go back in the hat? My understanding is no. And I was wondering if we can check on that before we go any further. Because my understanding is that once they're eliminated, somebody told me that, and I said, I'm just asking questions here. So are we allowed to do that? Is that if we decide as a council just to do that, we can do that? Is that okay? So again, that process I'm okay with. I'm fine with that process.
So I'm going to jump in, and then Ron can kind of fill in perhaps maybe where I might be off base. You asked about the criteria, and this would be from my point of view, and I think it's got to be the fairest, is that they sell themselves. Back in, think of it as an all candidates meeting, where they come up and they tell us who they are. Why is it that they love Lucan Biddulph? Why is it that they want to serve our community in this fashion? And maybe they have some points that they want to hit on, that they see as deliverables that they want to see in the next 18 months. Who knows? But I think it's their job to sell them to us, or sell themselves to us. And then we'll have opportunity to ask questions. And that's where, if there's something of concern that I think a counselor or any one of us has, that that isn't answered, then you have the opportunity to ask them about that. But to say, to give them a topic, I don't think is fair. I think let's face it, they're only being given 5 minutes, and as you say, they've submitted applications, and on paper, I think you're absolutely right. I would agree with you. Very fortunate to have 5 names available to us, that 5 people that have, put their name forward. So let's hear from them. And it's my understanding, and Ron can correct me, but that would be up to us to be able to frame up if those 2 names would be included. Or is it the remaining 3? Or is it all 5? Or is it only those 2 names? But there's, as Ron has said, the Municipal Act doesn't lay out any situation, right? It just says by election or appoint, and how they're appointed is what we have to deal with. Am I correct on that one, Ron?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. Did you have any follow-up on that, Councillor Regan?
No, thank you very much. It was a question, and again, I wasn't suggesting we actually give them a topic. I was just thinking about again, level playing field, and it was just a question about criteria.
Sure.
So
nope, absolutely, that's great. Councillor Westman.
Well, I've been struggling with the whole process myself since the topic came up, and we've been heading in this direction. I do like the recommendation that's been discussed here. That does relieve me a little bit, gives me a little bit more feeling of confidence and comfort in the process. I think when it comes to the question of what names go in the bin for drawing, I think I would be more open to all 5. Because all 5 have met the basic criteria. I think every single one of these people has a lot of merit. They bring a lot to the table, whether they've got experience specifically or whether they've got skills and abilities that would be valuable as individuals. I think after reviewing them all, we're very lucky to have this much interest from 5 good people, truly diverse backgrounds and knowledge, but wow, it's great to see this. So I think I'd be very open to that if we did get to that position, that all 5 names go in the bucket, and we do it objectively and draw them. As far as the other part of the process, I agree with that as well. So yeah, I'm comfortable now.
Great, thank you for that, Jasmine. Since we've heard from everybody, you know, I think Alex said it the same, or said it when he opened up his remarks about thinking about the process and what it can look like. And it is, you know, it's quite a responsibility to have to determine, you know, how we're going to fill this vacancy. You know, we're all here because of a very democratic process, and we want to make sure that, you know, the residents of Ward 2 and all of Lucan Biddulph are, you know, properly served and represented. So it is a big responsibility. And as Ron said, you know, there are so many options out there. There are so many things that you can do. And, you know, we could make it a difficult process, or, you know, we can try and streamline it. And I really think, Ron, that your option A that you've come up with is probably the most streamlined. I think it's clean. I think that Deputy Mayor used that term because it does give us option. It does give us an option on the floor to make that nomination. And then, you know, when if we can't come to a decision, then how do you get to that decision? And when you've got, you know, 5 qualified candidates by lot, it seems the way to go. That's what happens at the county. You know, that's the process for determining who the warden is. And in the event of a tie after 2 motions, then the name is drawn out. And I mean, you can't get, you know, much more fairer than that, right? So I'm very supportive of option A, and I would agree. I mean, you know, we're a small council. If motions were to 2 motions were to be lost on a 2-2 vote, I think it still shows that as the 4 of us are still pretty tight in our recommendation, and I think that you just put all 5 names in together and go from there. So, Deputy Mayor.
Just back to the hard, like, I do want to discuss this hard 5 minutes, that each of them know that, and whether staff will keep track of that or not, because I think it will be important to, if, you know, like we should with some of our delegations even, I think we should be pre-root in this, and either we're going to stick to what we're saying. They have 5 minutes, so I think our staff should tell them probably 3 minutes. They should speak for it the longest. I got a feeling if any of us have questions, I'm assuming I probably would ask each candidate the same question, probably, or maybe not. But I think I really want to make sure that if we have somebody that wants to ramble for 15, 20 minutes, that they know at 5 minutes they will be cut off, as long as everybody's in agreement with that and they're told that, and there's no exceptions.
I think that is fair. That's what would happen at an all candidates meeting. So I think you give them a time limit and yeah, a 3-minute warning and 5-minute max.
And then however, whoever you're the chair, obviously, however you select the people to ask questions, the last question might not get answered, but the 5-minute mark, it's done. So, yep, no, very good.
Good. Okay, I misunderstood then.
When they get to, I assume when we put up our hand to ask some questions, and you'll be in you'll probably ask, we can't all speak at once. So 3 of us have our hand up to ask a question. At the 5-minute mark, though, it's done. Otherwise, can they speak for 5 minutes and we can have they can continue on as long as we want to ask questions? Or are they 5 minutes total?
Oh, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was under the assumption that they would speak, and it doesn't have to be 5 minutes. We can say speak for 3 minutes, and then you ask them questions until we don't have any other questions.
Okay, gotcha. So they've got unlimited time to answer the questions and and for us to ask questions. Unlimited time on that.
Ron?
That would be my suggestion, Madam Mayor. So if you pick 3 minutes, pick 3 minutes. I mean, it says 5 in the report. We can amend that to 3.
Yeah.
But I agree with Madam Mayor. I don't think you want to limit your questioning ability for each one of the candidates. So if you want to shorten it to 3, I can amend the report to read 3 minutes to each candidate. Will get 3 minutes. if you want 5 minutes, but I would suggest give them either 3 or 5 minutes, and then council has an opportunity to ask all the questions that they want to ask of that candidate. I don't think you're, I don't know that you'd be serving the taxpayers by cutting it off artificially. I mean, this is a special meeting. It's only for this purpose. So we do have some time.
They've done a cover letter. I'd like to see myself speaking limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, ideally. And then from there, unlimited questions and back and forth. Yeah.
And I think too, we can frame it in a way that when the questions are asked, then again, so if you ask the question, you know, are you in favor of a dog park? That they don't go on for 20 minutes about why they are or why they aren't. That I think that they would respect that, you know, to keep the answers succinct and keep it moving. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted clarity. I wanted clarity on that.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the report? Ron, did you have anything further to add before we look at kind of tightening up the motion?
So I think, Madam Mayor, if I may, the motion is to the council, number one, instruct staff to arrange for a special council meeting for 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, July 20th, which is next week, for the purposes of appointing a qualified candidate to fill the vacant Ward 2 council position. And further, that council approves the procedure for council vacancy appointment as outlined in report CAO 11/2021. So as part of that, I just need clarification from the members of council. I heard the deputy mayor say he'd like the speeches, the candidates' time reduced to 3 minutes. Is that the consensus of the majority of council? Or do we, okay. So I've got the deputy mayor and Councillor Regan. Madam Mayor, are you okay with 3 minutes as opposed to 5?
I'm okay. I would be open to a 30-minute or a 30-second, sorry, not a 30-minute, a 30-second, you know, extension that kind of, you know, but I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to see it ramble on, and we can watch the timing on that.
And certainly you are in control of the meeting. You run the meeting, so
Yep.
look after that. Okay, so I'm hearing 3. Alex, Councillor Westman, are you okay with 3 minutes at the discretion of the mayor? Okay, so I shall make that change to 3 minutes as opposed to 5. And then we will go with option A as outlined on part 3 of the report. Is that correct? Okay, so that's how the report will be amended. So in the motion will be, and further, the council approves the procedure for council vacancy appointment as amended in report CAO 11/2021. Okay.
Okay. As amended. Okay. Okay. Okay, any other further discussion on that? So with that in mind, I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. Any further discussion? All opposed? And that's carried. So I assume the follow-up will happen with the candidates tomorrow, and it will be done virtually, and we'll go from there.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Ron?
No, that's it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe, Tina, you've got anything?
I do not. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Catherine, Finance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, I have my first report, FIN-11-2021. And the purpose of this report is to provide council with an overview of the new optional small business property tax subclass as announced in the 2020 Ontario budget. This proposal allows municipalities to establish a tax ratio specific for small businesses. And in a 2-tier municipality, tax policy is set by the upper tier. Therefore, Middlesex County would be the one to have to pass a bylaw to adopt the subclass for commercial and industrial properties. There is more details that came down in the regulations in May. And since that time, discussions have begun with the county and the other lower tiers in Middlesex. And future updates will be brought forward as information becomes available. And this report before you is just for your information at this time, but I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Any questions on this? It is very introductory, and as Catherine said, more will come in time. So if there isn't any, then I would ask for a motion to receive Catherine's report for information, please. Councillor Reagan, Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, that's carried. Okay, your next report, Catherine.
Second report I have is FIN-12-2021. And this is just the quarterly update, the budget to actual for as of June 2021. It's the update on the operations side of the business. As you know, we're already halfway through the year. And overall, I'd say we're in good shape as compared to budget. You can see in some of the analysis there. But we did budget with COVID restrictions in mind, and we'll see how this affects the pandemic continues and into the second half. But fingers crossed, we're able to offer our services as planned and budgeted for. So keep watching that. A couple of things to note, I've noted in the report, you can see some of the bigger variances and where we stand, but typically halfway through, not given seasonality, 50% is a good benchmark at this time, but some things don't happen till the end of the year or as we do final tax bills in next month. One thing I wanted to point out was that our summer camps have had an overwhelming response. We budgeted based on half of what we normally do, and it's actually coming in at more where we normally are, given what we're allowed to operate under and how many people actually wanted to participate. So that was, so we're way ahead on that. So that's good news. And yeah, the rest is just at this point for your information. There's no decisions need to be made, but if you have any questions, I'm always available to answer them.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. And I think we all agree that it's good news that we're halfway through 2021, and that's can only be good things, right? And any questions or comments on the report that's been presented? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to receive that for information. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Catherine. And as you said, I know that you are always available in case questions arise. So yeah, did you have something else?
I do have one more verbal update. Just want to mention about the budget survey that's out there. It was launched on June. And I invite the members of the public, residents, everyone who wants to answer that to please do so by the end of this week. You find the link on our township website. It was also posted on our township Facebook page. And if you need a paper copy, if you don't have access to do it electronically, then you can ask for those at the office and we can get that to you and just hand it back in the office by the end of the week. I believe as also mentioned in the newsletter that was printed today, that probably people will find their mailboxes tomorrow. So I just encourage anyone who wants to participate and have a say in that to do so.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for reminding everybody of that, because I do think that that's going to be a great tool. We've taught, as I said, when you mentioned or when you let us know that you were doing this, that that's something that we've talked about for a few years now. So I think that's great. And it certainly will help with the communication and involvement of our public in the budget process. Okay, I don't believe there's any more in planning. So we'll move on to public works. Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My first report is the Roman Line Bridge. report. The tender came back in, and Theo Vanderberg Construction was low bid. We did invite a number of contractors, 6 in total, to bid. Theo was the only one that did actually submit a bid. His bid came in under budget. Our budget number was 500,000. He came in including contingency and HST at 480,492 and 95 cents. Which is good. We were really worried about cost increases in a number of areas such as concrete and steel. So it was good to see that we were in the we hit the mark there. So other than that, my recommendation is to take Theo's. It is the only bid that we did receive, but it is within budget, and that's my recommendation to council.
Okay, thank you for that, Jeff. Any questions on this recommendation? Councillor Regan.
Thank you. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Jeff. That 30,000, just for my own knowledge, that 30,000, is that included in the price?
Yeah, that's correct. Through the mayor, that's correct. That 30,000 is included in that price.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So Jeff, I know that it's come in under budget, so that's great. But I guess maybe thinking beyond this, is there concern that we only got the one tender back after inviting other contractors to participate? Should we be concerned at all for future projects, or is it just everybody's busy?
Well, I think that is the concern, and I think you got to plan out your schedule of projects due to the contractor availability. One of the factors that we did dealing with Spreet's, they did reach out prior to releasing the tender to see if there was people available, contractors available to do this. And we know obviously Theo, we knew ahead of time that he was going to be submitting, he was interested, and we were hoping that there was a couple other ones that did show that they were still looking for work. It just, unfortunately, they didn't submit the bid for some reason or another. So I think you're exactly right. I think there is some worry about scheduling this stuff. You can't just, I think a lot of municipalities are looking at, you just don't throw tenders out there right now and expect to be contractors rushing to you. So I think you got to do your research a little bit. And we were ahead. We did look out before we released the tender to see what was out and what was available. We were ready. We were ready to delay this. The hard part with a bridge is you have to get your approvals in for the fisheries and a lot of the work that takes place around water and that sort of thing. So we can't just delay it a month or 2 months. We have to actually delay it a year. But we were prepared to do that, but we actually did our homework before we released the tender.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so there is a motion to receive the tender and authorize and to accept the tender and authorize staff to do so. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All opposed? That's carried. Okay, want to move on to your next one, Jeff?
Yeah, this one is kind of exciting. It doesn't seem like it because there's not a lot of words to it, but it's one that I think is in everybody's mind at council. This is in everybody's mind right now. So this report is an information report coming forward on design guidelines and infrastructure standards. And council, through numerous comments and then a request to have information brought forward at a previous council meeting. So that's what I was looking with this report. So a little background, growth in a community. When it does take place, we need to control it. There's attributes that in the community needs to be defined, and I think all council members are seeing that right now because of the growth in our municipality. So municipalities can use a number of documents to help control and help regulate and development and growth, and that can start right with your official plan. It can move into things like what we're doing with the master servicing study. There's a recreational master plan. All these things start to fit together. But two of the items that work together and are two really important cogs in the wheel are your design guidelines and your infrastructure standards or your construction standards. So I'll start this report. We'll look at both. We'll touch on both and what their responsibilities are to have. So the urban development design guidelines are really your document that helps explain your community. It can help lay out aspects of your community, everything from landscaping to heritage to mobility, how you get around town. The design guidelines are just that, guidelines. They're meant to be flexible, but what they're supposed to do is give builders or developers an indication of what we expect in our community. They can be very narrow. They can concentrate on your downtown. They can be very broader. They can incorporate everything from residential, commercial, industrial, and how you want to develop your community. So guidelines are kind of your the way you put your mark on your community. And I think through a number of council meetings over the last little bit, we've had discussions about trees, snow storage, street layout, all sorts of things, because we are bringing in forth more development. It's exactly what guidelines are for, is to help developers have a vision of what we expect them to bring towards in their developments. So, and then one of the interesting aspects of the guidelines is once you get your vision, you can transform it into your standards. And that's where the construction standards or your infrastructure standards come in. You then can develop your standards and your lane widths, your sidewalks, your layout that way. Then it becomes more engineering based. You can, there's all, in the report it touches on, there's the Ontario Building Code, there's Ontario standards that are looked into. And so that's the real thing. So you build from your guidelines, you build into your standards. Right now, Lucan does have standards. We do not have guidelines. We do have standards. They were developed in about 2004. So they're starting to become outdated. Right now, when we do have a lapse in our standards, or we find that there's a missing piece of the information, we fall back on the City of London standards. And this is primarily used because it coordinates builders in the area, and it creates a unified standard by doing that. So having said that, council is very concerned about the future and how we develop the community. So, I think this can be very well accomplished with the development of urban and design guidelines. In fact, the recent completed CIP has a recommendation to develop these guidelines. And it works, the guidelines works, Lisa's doing work and continuing work with the accessibility audit. And this works in hand with what Lisa's doing on the downtown side of things, and everything can kind of be pulled together. It's not an easy process. It would take a third party to develop the guidelines, to pull all the information together from staff, from council, from the public, and pull all that stuff together and help to bring all the guidelines together. It would take about 8 months. I've reached out to and looked at an estimate. The estimate cost would be around $30,000. So it would be something that we would look at for incorporating into the capital budget in 2022. But I think having said that, I think you can see where you go from guidelines to your standards, and it's like a large wheel that all fits together. So I'll leave it at that. And if council would like to ask some questions about either one, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. I know that we had been waiting for a bit for this, so this is exciting that you brought that to us. Any questions or comments from council on this?
Madam Mayor, if I should say, I see the process very similar to how we developed our strategic plan, where we can someone can pull together our ideas, and staff and council work together, and lack of a better word, workshops and start bringing forward ideas. And I see that as a starting point, because everybody's going to have a slightly different vision on what the community should look like.
Yeah, that's for sure. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, I'm just wondering, how does this tie in with just sort of discussions we're going to have about future residential development?
Well, through the mayor, this is really, the founding, this is the start, so that future residential developments will use these guidelines as their starting point when they do their design, rather than bringing their design to us and then us trying to pick it apart after the fact. These guidelines will be available for developers and engineers to start the process. So when we want, or when our guidelines suggest, I should say, that we want a certain look in our subdivisions, it's there. So by the time it gets to council, we should be expecting some of these guidelines, or we should be expecting the guidelines to be met.
Yeah.
Follow up? Yep. Sorry, Jeff, you may have mentioned, the process starts, sort of when will this process start? Because it's 8 months to take. So sorry, you may have mentioned it and I may have missed it. Sorry.
Can I jump in 1 second? I just want to clarify the question. Councillor Regan, is your question of Jeff, does this document assist council in what areas will be designated residential? Is that your question?
Well, not specifically, to what areas. No, sorry, I just to clarify.
I just wanted to make sure we're getting.
No, I was just wondering about how how does it tie in? That was just my question. How does it tie in? How does it help us? And I guess second to that, just sort of when does the process start? Because it takes 8 months to complete. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to clarify, because this process doesn't really help council as to what areas should be designated residential first before, area A before area B. That doesn't form this. What this document does is sort of lays out council's expectations. So when a subdivider brings forth a plan of subdivision or a site plan for a apartment building or whatever, it'll outline council's collective expectations as far as green space, as far as parking, as far as all those other amenities that council wants to see. So.
Right. Okay. I'm glad I asked. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, maybe if I could reach out to Dan. Dan's a planner, and this is part of the planning process. So I'm sure he's got a lot of comments also on it. And one of his messages to myself was that it's part of a vision, developing a vision how we want to develop. So maybe Dan, if I don't mind, I'll throw it over to you because, you know, obviously I'm more familiar with the standards, but I mean, this is part of a planning process also, so.
Yeah, through the mayor to members of council. So yeah, Jeff's very much correct. Your urban design guidelines really are meant to establish your vision for the municipality as to how you see it developing out into the future. So what it will do is kind of tell developers, you know, this is what we want to see in terms of our subdivisions. This is what we believe development in Lucan Biddulph should look like. And it'll also help in situations where, you know, you do have private land development through condominiums, establish those additional standards that currently right now don't exist within the township. So it gives you a little bit of teeth moving forward to apply a bit of pressure if, say, you know, a developer maybe doesn't want to add sidewalks into a vacant land condominium or that type of infrastructure that's on the private side. Gives you a little bit more teeth to actually go in and say, no, we want you to do this as we've established this as part of our vision, and we think this is important for development moving forward. The other thing that you want to consider, especially with urban design guidelines, and you'll likely, whoever it is that works on this process moving forward, is they're going to want to tie it back into your official plan. So you're going to want to give your urban design guidelines teeth by tying back those policies and provisions back into your official plan. So it becomes a requirement and not a suggestion to developers moving forward.
Okay. And then I think, Daniel, you asked about when it would start. Well, I think the idea would be that we would put the money in the 2022 budget and then go from there. That's correct, right, Jeff, Catherine?
Yeah, I think it's a large enough amount that I think that needs to be discussed at budget.
Yep.
You know, I would love to start tomorrow. I think it's very important to the township, but I think financially it needs to be discussed at budget.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then the recommendation is just to receive that for information, knowing that this is not the last conversation we will be having on this.
It'll be coming up at budget.
So if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed? That's carried. Great, thank you. Did you have anything else verbal, Jeff?
Yeah, just Madam Mayor, thank you, Dan, for that. It's one of those things. It's part planning, it's part engineering, it's part everything. So thanks, Dan. Yeah, a couple of items. I'll be real quick. I just wanted to give everybody an update. We've had a grader. The grader has a breakdown. We have shipped it off to a company for evaluation. There's actually oil leaving the engine and going into the coolant system. So I don't want to jump to conclusions until I get a report back. But we have had engine problems in this grader before. I think this will be the third or fourth time we've had engine issues. So, but I just wanted to give council the information just so that they weren't surprised that there'll be a report followed up when I find out what's going on with it. So, excuse me, the second update I just wanted to give, and this kind of goes back to Councillor Reagan's question when we were talking about the severance. Really weren't into the Westdale commercial proposal, but we all know where the severance is going. I am currently working with Westdale and BM Ross and Dillon's, because there's multiple parties here trying to figure out a solution on how and what is available on our urbanizing of Main Street from the existing services and to match up with what Westdale is proposing out there. So I am working on that. There will be more information brought forward to council on that. It's not a simple solution, but there needs to be a solution on how we integrate Westdale into the community as moving forward with that project. So that's ongoing. Radar signs have arrived. I don't know if I've let everybody know. I think you'll see there's a new one out, and I think it's on Gilmore. Over on Gilmore, the new one's out. It's out working, and so that's good news. And we'll see shortly the county have county permits for the signs in Granton, and so those should arrive in the next little while in Granton. The traffic counts, we did just completed traffic counts across the township. Obviously, we're into COVID and we've had some road closures. We're going to update those traffic counts again in the fall. I think it was a great first attempt at traffic counts and start that program. It's a way to get things going. I will, once I have it in chart form, I'll make it available for members of council to take a look at. There was a couple of minor surprises, but overall, it's what we could predict. But there is a couple of surprises there, so more to follow on the traffic counts. Yeah, and I think that's it, Madam Mayor. I'll leave it at that for now.
Great, thanks so much, Jeff. Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation. Paul.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. A few things tonight. I'll start with the report PR 10 2020. The purpose of this report is to recommend for council to establish the establishment of a fundraising leadership committee. This committee will work as a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, as they will work with members with PRAC to facilitate fundraising campaign for the Phase 2 Community Center project. Community leaders were identified within the campaign coaches report to council. Those members were approached to see of their willingness and their availability and interest to participate in this campaign. Preliminary discussions have helped kind of identify what that committee should look like and maybe some of the goals that it should look towards. And the goal of this would be to get council to appoint this committee of leaders who would then work towards determining and finalizing a campaign for this project. Important for them is that, we identify the reason, why we need to do this, really build the community. It's a community hub. It's important for the community. And I think it's good to identify that. And, members of the community, this is not limiting who would be involved in fundraising. It's important. This is a leadership group who I'm sure if there's volunteers wanting to be part of this, there will be plenty of opportunities, as well as with PRAC and staff and members of council. So with that, as you see outlined in the report, the composure of the fundraising leadership committee as it's identified in the amendment PRAC terms of reference. And with that, it was recommended that council receive this report and appoint the fundraising leadership subcommittee as described as under the amended terms for the subcommittee of PRAC.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Paul. Any questions on this report? Comments? Discussion? This is certainly an encouraging step forward in our process with the community center plan. So very excited to see this report.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, other things popping up in our community. The pop-up clinic.
Okay, I'm just gonna, before you go on, I'm going to do the motion before you move on. Okay, and then I won't forget. So if there aren't any other questions, then you've got the motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder on appointing the fundraising leadership subcommittee. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, and all opposed, and that's carried. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. The pop-up clinic in Granton on the 22nd. I'm pleased to announce, because of the huge turnouts they've been receiving and dealing with, we're close to St. Mary's and Stratford, as well as people from Lucan and other surrounding communities. It's been extended from instead of 10 to 1 p.m. It was actually going to be 10 to 4 p.m. on the 22nd. And this is a pop-up clinic. There is no appointment needed. It's for any homebound individuals, you're encouraged to reach out to the paramedics to on the flyer to the Middlesex Paramedics Unit to identify yourselves, and they can help send people out to your location to help those who can't actually get out to receive a vaccine. So it's great for our community that we're able to do this, and I'm really looking forward to being part of it. I know Madam Mayor has offered to volunteer as well, and it's going to be, I'm hoping to see huge turnouts here as well. So it's going to be good. We'll get all our people vaccinated and get us more back to where we need to be. Second of that, another good news, step 3 has arrived as of Friday at midnight. With that, we've set up meetings with the health unit to just confirm small details. There's still a lot of vague areas in what has been released in the upcoming regulations, and just to make sure that we know what we can and cannot do. We're going to have that tomorrow, and with that, bookings that we've already had in the system, we are just getting them back to going again, and then we will be opening it up to the community. As of Friday, we can open to members to come in for ice skating and the hall for gym use and events based on what those regulations are determined. It's looking as a right now, we might be able to fit under the guidance for as a business, which is 50%, which is it's looking good. So anyone who's interested in the community, reach out to myself or Abby. We'd be happy to follow up with you with any information that you need if you're planning an event or a rental, and we can get you set up and enjoying our amenities again. So looking forward to that. Thirdly, we had some issues this past week with the fire alarm at the community center. Don't worry, nothing's on fire. We're good. There was some issues with the previous week with we had a bit of a brownout in town. The power phased a little bit, and it caused some issues with the monitoring system. It wasn't the actual fire alarm, but it worked as it was supposed to. They received an alarm, and they immediately dispatched the fire department. It's just how the procedure works. It's unfortunate the department had to get out and rush out to get here, but luckily the building was okay. And, our fire plan worked, our firebox outside worked for getting them access. And it was good to see that everything that's planned does work how it's supposed to. It's since been replaced by the monitoring company. So this issue should not happen again, as well as we are looking into some preventative maintenance issues that we can do to the panel to help eliminate that issue completely. Because it's whenever the power doesn't quite switch over to generator, that's where the issues arise. So we're hoping that that's going to be addressed and should not continue on. Other than that, I'm open for any questions or comments.
Great, thanks for that, Paul. Any comments on what Paul's presented? Okay, great, thank you, Paul. Economic development, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Although this report's technically not under economic development, it's under my my title for extra work for elections. So the report before you tonight is regarding accepting our 2022 alternative voting method. We will hopefully we use IntelliVote once again this year, or I guess for next year. For the telephone and voting method. We were working with other Middlesex County lower tiers to ensure that we're all kind of using the same system and the same dates and everything like that. So the recommendation is that we renew the contract with IntelliVote for this election. Like I said, we've used them 3 times. This will be the 3rd time now. Great working with them. They have a huge clientele over Ontario and Canada, actually. So I think, that's the step forward for the 2022 is to stay the course, use the system. It's worked well the last couple times. And like I said, we're all kind of Middlesex County. We all work together to make sure we're all kind of standardized in what we're using in our approach.
Hey, thanks for that, Lisa. Any questions on this report? Okay, you do have a recommended motion in front of you to approve the execution of the agreement for IntelliVote systems. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. And all opposed? And that's carried. Did you have anything else, Lisa?
No, that's good. That's it for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor comments. Councillor Regan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll probably get Jeff to speak to this more, but there are signs popping up all over our community to slow down. And I just wanted to give a sort of a shout out to Jeff and Julie and Megan getting everything running and tracking where all these signs are going. I know I get a number of requests. I was going to start the campaign off by putting a sign on the Deputy Mayor's front lawn and Councillor Westman's front lawn, but we decided against that. So I didn't have their permission. So just, and I'll let Jeff speak to it, but I'm getting a number of compliments from for staff just on the design on it. And there's quite a number of people I know that have approached me and asked to get these signs. So the idea, of course, is trying to get an equal distribution throughout the community. But I thought maybe if Jeff wanted an opportunity to speak to it as well. If I forgot anything.
Yeah, through the mayor, Daniel, and it's nice to see your enthusiasm and for this program. So in kind of leading us to charge on getting the word out there. So yeah, we're Julian and Maggie are keeping track of the signs. We want to make sure that there's a number go in each community, Clandeboye, Granton, and Lucan. And we're also keeping track of addresses so we can make sure that they're spread out in the community themselves. And so the message gets out there throughout the whole municipality. We still have some signs left. So if anybody is still desiring to have a sign put on their street, please contact the office. Yeah, it's nice to see. I think I personally like the connection to the community, the colors and the obviously the shamrock. I think drives it home that it's a community that we live in, and all we're asking is people to take care when they're driving on our streets and on our roads to slow down. So
perfect. Okay. Right. And we thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Great. Any other councillor comments? Just in keeping with the slow down message, today at County Council, we approved some changes to some speed limits. And so actually from Highway 7 up to Granton, the Granton line has been reduced from 90 kilometers an hour. It will be, I should say, it will be, it hasn't, but we approved from 90 to 80. So that hopefully will make a difference as they come into town. There's been a number of changes across the county, but that was just one of them. Okay, last call.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for that. That's great. I've had a few residents of the Granton area ask about that, and I'm really very grateful that you were able to get that done. Thank you.
Okay. Any other, just last call for councillor comments. Okay, any changes to budget? Notices of motion? Okay, then we'll move into our motions for the evening. So the first one is the accounts paid. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. And it's for June 2021, $1,629,142.15. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All opposed? Carried. And this is, of course, came out of our last meeting, and resolved that the Township of Lucan Biddulph Council hereby supports the Township of Hudson in their request that the federal and provincial government includes apparatuses, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure program, and further direct staff to forward a copy of this resolution to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Now it's got the Honorable Laurie Scott, but that has changed. So I'm going to take the Honorable Laurie Scott out and just say send to the Minister of Infrastructure. The Ontario Fire Marshal, John Pegg, and the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. And I know that Councillor Regan had brought up that we support that motion, and I just wanted to let you know to Councillor Regan, when we're going over the agenda meeting, Ron and I were talking, there's hopefully we have a request in for a joint delegation with a number of, like with the partner municipalities in the county, talking about further infrastructure programs. So we'll include that in the ask with that for fire departments. Moving into bylaws. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to this bylaw, and this is for the Blake Drain, that if no one cares to speak to this bylaw on its third reading, that it be considered to have been read a third time and passed, and that it be numbered 24-2021, the Blake Drain 2021. And can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor Manders, Councillor Regan, all opposed. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed, and that they be numbered 46-2021 Committee Appointment Bylaw, 47-2021-2022 Municipal Election Alternative Voting Methods, 48-2021 Execution of Temporary Use Agreement for Cabral 34119 Saints Ferry Line, 49-2021 Execution of Rural Economic Development Program Agreement, 207-2021 Temporary Use Bylaw Cabral 34119 Saints Ferry Line, 208-2021 the Zoning Bylaw Amendment for Carroll 6441 Wayland Line, 209-2021 the Zoning Bylaw Amendment for Damon 35098 Mitchell Line, and 50-2021 the confirming bylaw. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:41 p.m. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening and stay dry.